Great theater, as defined by William Dafoe, who is an American actor, pretty popular. He's made quite a few iconic movements in the acting business. So great theater is about challenging how we think and encouraging us to fantasize about a world that we aspire to. So by definition, theater is something that adapts and changes with the times. It's the intent of it has altered and adapted through the years because without that progression, the art form itself would have died out shortly after it began, because people crave that entertainment and they can't have it if it's the same thing over and over and over again. So starting with its initial purpose, which was ratifying popular beliefs at the time and various customs, it has transitioned to become a much broader idea, which encompasses all of the shifts that have occurred since the 1700s, when it was brought over from Europe. Initially, it was made in England, as it is said, because from reading James Morden's book, which is titled The American Theater, one can see that it was a British profession. It was something where it came over during colonization period, and the actors, the managers, the producers, and even the audience was mostly of English descent. And William Dunlap, who is deemed the father of American drama, he saw that, and he saw that as an issue. So he decided to start writing plays which drew in a native audience. He wrote them about native daily life so that the natives would be interested. And once the audience began growing, the industry began growing, and they never wanted to see that stop. They saw how much money could come from it and how it could become such a huge part of the culture. So they began increasing the novelty, how fancy it was, how nice it was, and everything like that, but that wasn't enough. So genres began to develop, and this is Langdon Mitchell, and he started adding controversy into things. So with comedy and farce and burlesque comedy, everything just kind of was about entertainment, but once he added controversy to the mix, people started asking questions, and critics weren't too excited about that. They wanted everything to remain peaceful. So Mitchell wasn't taken very well by the critics, but George Shaw came into play, and he really made controversy a good thing in society's eyes. Everyone wanted more of it because he made them think about how society was and why society was the way that it was. So this really shifted the purpose of theater from keeping tradition and keeping customs to questioning why those customs are even there in the first place. And then, so during that period, theater was skyrocketing. It was incredibly popular, and it was increasing economic growth, and very good things were coming from it in terms of culture, but then the decline of theater occurred. Movies and radio shows began to rise, and the Great Depression hit. So all at once, everything just crashed. And Hallie Flanagan, who is working with the Library of Congress, wrote an article about the Federal Theater Act, which plays began being funded by the federal government, which meant that they were very censored. They couldn't really talk about everything they wanted to talk about. Plays couldn't be portrayed the same way that they used to be. So they were censored to show just national scope, democratic attitudes, and not really exactly be theater in its expressive form. And this was really hindering to the entire project, and just continued with that downfall of theater at the time. After World War I, however, the economy all over was booming. So the theater industry had the chance to rebuild and take those movie cinemas and transfer them and make them back into theaters in their most literal sense. So with this experimentation came Tennessee Williams, and in a PBS article about who he was and how he wrote plays, he focused on the raw human nature, self-awareness. It was almost psychoanalytic in nature. It was very interesting for the audience because at this point they had only really questioned surface level, superficial ideologies, but with Tennessee Williams, they were questioning humanity at its very core and how it was meant to be used in society and how we could make an actual change at times. It was very, very raw and emotional for the audience, the actors, the managers, the writers, everyone involved. And from that, actually, Eric Bentley described it as a peculiar combination of the comic and the pathetic, which was just, it was kind of critical of Williams, but it was also showing how unique Williams' style was. And from that, more and more writers began to use that psychoanalytic theory. And then the Actors Studio came about, which was incredibly progressive at the time. On the official webpage, Andreas Manolakakis, who is a current member, as this studio still exists today, mentioned or wrote about the basis, the foundation methodology, which was Konstantin Stanislavski's, and that was focusing on how an actor can really become his or her character and access his or her own emotions and past experiences to show a new experience on the stage. So the audience is watching an actual scene play out rather than just people pretending. And that leads into present day theater. From there, we've continued to become more and more emotional and personal with our performances, and as time has progressed, all of these ideologies and new purposes for theater have just accumulated, and they keep adding on to each other rather than replacing each other. Theater has just become a more and more expressive and innovative art form over the years, which is truly amazing. And as described by Les Waters for the future of theater, theater holds a mirror to the world and also offers reflections of what the world could be. It is a continually progressive art form. It is something that will never stop applying to people in their daily lives, and it will never stop being relevant to societal and political issues around the globe. So thank you.